Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are totally demystifying the art of paragraph writing. You probably already know the basic mechanics of grammar, right? But today, we're looking at the invisible architecture of writing. We're going to break down exactly how to take a messy, disjointed stream of consciousness and engineer it into polished, professional prose that literally commands attention. So, let's dive right in. Now, picture this for a second. You're drafting a high-stakes email to your executive team, or maybe a crucial policy memo. In your head, your argument is brilliant. It's ironclad and perfectly logical. But then you reread what you just typed, and the ideas just don't flow. They feel kind of clunky. Have you ever found yourself just summarizing information instead of confidently asserting your own voice? Well, the difference between a paragraph that sings and one that totally stumbles almost always comes down to underlying structure. Without it, even the most profound ideas just get lost in translation between your brain and the page. So, to fix that, we're going to walk through a foolproof recipe for structural success. First, the paragraph sandwich. Second, crafting topic sentences. Third, easy as pie. Fourth, coherence and cohesion. And finally, number 5, the final polish. Okay, starting off with section 1, the paragraph sandwich. Let's kick things off with a conceptual metaphor that honestly might sound a little elementary at first, but it is absolutely the foundation of all high-level professional writing. Think of your paragraph exactly like a sandwich. The top bread, that's your topic sentence. The meat in the middle is made up of your supporting sentences, and the bottom bread is your concluding sentence. Now, the top and bottom bread are there to contain the meat, right? They give your reader a clear, unified main idea surrounded by supportive proof. When professionals write what I call a bottomless paragraph, where they just drop a bunch of data and abruptly jump to the next point, they leave the reader totally confused about why they just read all that information. You've got to contain those ideas. Without the bread, you just have a messy handful of deli meat. But without the meat, you just have a dry, empty bun. Moving right along to section 2, crafting topic sentences. So let's take a closer look at that top bun. This is arguably the single most important sentence in your entire paragraph because it sets the expectations for literally everything that follows. A strong topic sentence has 2 crucial parts: the topic itself, which just names the subject, and the controlling idea. Now, the controlling idea is the specific angle or limitation you're putting on your topic. It acts like a steering wheel to keep your paragraph from wandering off the road. To see how powerful this is, imagine your topic is remote work. If my controlling idea is measurably increases individual productivity, well, the rest of the paragraph is going to be full of positive data and output metrics. But if I keep that exact same topic, remote work, and change the controlling idea to damages long-term team culture, well, the whole trajectory shifts towards psychology and communication breakdowns. The controlling idea dictates exactly what meat can go into your sandwich. Let's compare a weak general approach to a much stronger specific one. Take a look at this. A job is part of life. That is way too broad. In a professional setting, an executive reading a sentence like that is going to immediately tune out because it forces them to do all the heavy lifting to figure out where you're going. They have no idea what you're actually going to say about jobs. Now contrast that with this. The number of hours that Americans work each week has changed in the past 30 years. Boom, perfect. It sets a precise boundary and gives a very specific hint about what's coming, working hours changing over 30 years, without giving away all the granular details that belong in the meat of the paragraph. All right, section 3, easy as pie. Speaking of the meat of the sandwich, let's talk about the supporting sentences that make up the bulk of your paragraph. And we're going to use a deliciously simple acronym for this: PIE. You see, very often, really smart professionals just default to summarizing texts or data. Why? Well, because summarizing is psychologically safe. Taking a stance, on the other hand, is risky. If you ever find yourself hiding behind summaries rather than asserting your own confident interpretation, the PIE method is going to be your ultimate structural guide. It gives you the architecture to confidently take a stance, helping you organize and revise your body paragraphs so they actually do the heavy lifting of proving your argument. Here's exactly how PIE breaks down. Step 1 is P for point. This is where you make a clear claim or statement that focuses your paragraph. Step 2 is I for illustration. This is where you back up your point using a quote, maybe a piece of hard data, or a very specific example. And step 3 is E for explanation. This is where you elaborate on the point in the context of your illustration, offering your own ideas and tying it all back to your main thesis. So point, illustration, explanation. Let's hear a really quick example in action. For my point, I might say, the shift to remote work has measurably increased individual output. For my illustration, I bring in the hard data. According to a 2023 industry survey, employees working from home resolved 15% more support tickets per week than their office-based counterparts. And then, for my explanation, I interpret that data. This increase in ticket resolution suggests that removing office distractions allows for deeper, more sustained periods of focused work, ultimately driving up overall company efficiency. Do you see how each layer just naturally builds on the last to prove that controlling idea? That right there is a solid pie paragraph. But, hey, keep in mind this structure is highly dynamic. It's not a rigid formula. As an advanced writer, you're going to adapt this recipe based on what your argument actually demands. Sometimes a standard PIE structure just doesn't cut it. Say you're making a highly controversial point that's going to face a lot of skepticism. You might need one point followed by an overwhelming amount of evidence, like several illustrations, and then one massive explanation at the end to tie it all together. So that's a PIIIE. On the flip side, if you're analyzing a complex historical sequence or maybe a multi-step process, you might alternate. You offer an illustration, explain it. Offer the next illustration, explain that. So a PIEIEIEEE. The architecture totally bends to your needs, but those core foundational ingredients, they always remain the same.
Moving on to section 4, coherence and cohesion.
Okay, with the meat and the bread firmly in place, we need the secret sauce. This is the glue that holds the whole paragraph together. Now, it is absolutely vital to understand the nuanced difference between these two terms. Coherence is all about the unity of your ideas. Basically, does the logic fundamentally make sense? Cohesion, on the other hand, is about the unity of your structural elements. Do the sentences physically and grammatically link together? To really picture this, think of a sentence like, I like apples, therefore my car is blue. Now, that sentence is highly cohesive because it uses the linking word therefore, right? But it has zero coherence because the underlying logic is just entirely absurd. Without both of these forces working together in tandem, your reader is forced to guess how your ideas connect. And that means they're going to have to reread your sentences over and over again just to get your point. The crucial takeaway here is making sure that successive sentences carry a topic over smoothly. You want to provide a crystal clear roadmap for your readers so they never get lost. Think about a progression of ideas mapped out with really clear signposts. If you state, there are 3 stages, and then follow it up sequentially with, in the first stage, then in the next stage, and finally wrap up with, finally, you're immediately signaling to the reader exactly where they are in the progression of your ideas. It completely removes all the friction from the reading experience. So, how do you achieve this seamless flow? You do it by building structural bridges between your sentences. You can use logical bridges, which basically means constructing successive sentences in a parallel, predictable form to carry an idea forward. For instance, first, we will design the prototype. Second, we will build the framework. Third, we will test the model. That repetitive rhythm inherently connects the thoughts. Alternatively, you can use verbal bridges. This involves repeating keywords or using synonyms to maintain the thread of the conversation. So if your first sentence talks about the new software update, your next sentence might smoothly transition by referencing this upgraded technology. Both of these bridges effortlessly carry your reader across the gap from one sentence to the very next. To make this even easier for you, consider this matrix your ultimate cheat sheet for linking words. These words explicitly mark transitions, and they really emphasize the inherent logic of your text. If you want to show a result, you signal it with words like consequently or therefore. If you want to pivot to a contrast, you cue the reader with nevertheless or on the contrary. But, and this is a quick word of warning for you advanced writers out there, do not overdo it. A super common amateur mistake is starting every single sentence with a transition word, like furthermore or however. It's honestly like putting way too much salt in a dish. It just ruins the whole meal. So use these road signs selectively for maximum structural impact. Also, when you're creating those verbal bridges, you really have to be careful. A super frequent trap writers fall into is vague back-referencing. When you write something like, Chalmers is no exception to that, the reader is abruptly forced to stop and ask themselves, wait, that what? Using words like this or that as standalone subjects creates unnecessary cognitive load. It just causes immediate confusion. To fix it, simply pair your back-referencing pronouns with a summary word. Look at the clear approach here. Chalmers is no exception to this situation. See? By simply adding a summary word like situation or maybe trend or problem, you achieve total clarity and you keep your reader moving right along.
And that brings us to section 5, the final polish.
Okay, we've built the structure, we've added our pie meat, and we've poured on that cohesive secret sauce. Now it is time to put the bottom bun on our sandwich. Your concluding sentence explicitly signals the end of the paragraph and reinforces your main point. Let's deliberately go through the golden rules for this. First up, begin with a conclusion signal, something like all in all, to sum up, or indeed. Second, repeat the controlling idea, but, and this is key, use different words. Do not just lazily copy and paste your topic sentence. Third, quickly summarize your main points. And finally, and I literally cannot emphasize this enough, never ever end a paragraph by introducing a new, unrelated idea. Doing that completely shatters the bottom bond of your sandwich. It destroys that nice containment you just worked so hard to build, and it leaves the reader totally hanging, thinking a new paragraph has prematurely started. So keep it contained, keep it focused. At the end of the day, writing a truly great, persuasive paragraph, it isn't magic, it's architecture. From the specific controlling idea of your top bun, right through the point, illustration, and explanation of your pie meat, all held firmly together by cohesive verbal bridges, all the way down to your final, cleanly contained conclusion. The recipe for professional prose is completely in your hands now. So here's my question for you. What will your next pie be about? Are you just going to summarize? Or are you ready to confidently assert your own voice? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy writing.